So joining us today, three of India's prominent industrialists. I want to begin by introducing Ajay Singh of SpiceJet, the man who's turned around an airline that was ailing, and a very remarkable turnaround this also. Sunil Kant Munjal, Joint Managing Director of Hero MotoCorp, and Ajay Shriram, Chairman, DCM Shriram. Thank you so much to all our guests for joining us. I want to start by asking you, Mr. Munjal, about the key expectation in the first post-demonetization budget, called possibly the biggest tectonic announcement in the Indian economy in the last several decades. This budget follows the demonetization bomb. As a top industrialist, what would you like to see the finance minister and the prime minister do to give you a sense of confidence to go back and start investing once again in the Indian economy?
So first, demonetization by itself is a brilliant idea. Execution has been very painful for people, for industry, for trade. So now the expectation is the government will help ease the pain by lowering tax rates, and the government will help improve consumption, which has dropped quite significantly, especially for consumer-facing businesses and small industry. I think the government needs to help on two fronts. One is help improve consumption, and second is on the investment side, accelerate its own spend on the large infrastructure projects which are already in currency. And there are a very large number of them, some stuck at different stages, some actually currently on. I think a combination of these will allow consumption to go, therefore production to pick up, and investment from the private sector to also come in, lagging quite severely. We have 14 quarters, quarter on quarter, except a quarter and a half, when gross capital formation in India has actually dropped. And that is a matter of concern. But going forward, it looks like medium to long term, we are in very good shape. The concern, as you're raising, is for here and now and today.
Ajay Singh, one of the big concerns for people sitting here, those watching, is that jobs are being lost, especially in the small and medium enterprises. There have been several reports of very significant job losses. Now, what can the finance minister do to ensure that job creation begins? Because ultimately, all this talk about India being one of the fastest growing economies of the world means nothing unless the people who are entering the economy actually find new jobs.
No, certainly. I think the government really needs to focus on getting growth back. Growth has taken a hit in the short run. There's no question about it. And I think one of the things that the government can do is to make sure that this pain was worth some gain. And for doing that, I think it's important that the government seriously consider reducing corporate income tax to get people, companies to start to think of investing again. You know, they had announced that they would gradually bring down income tax to 25%. Maybe what they should do is to take a big step and announce it in one go.
But is that possible? Given that this comes just a couple of days before the elections in Punjab, in Goa, UP goes to polls, is it even possible? Because Kejriwal, Rahul Gandhi, they'll all attack the government saying that this is a suit-boot-ki government and they're taking care of their corporate friends like you.
So certainly it cannot be done in isolation. You cannot only reduce corporate income tax without ensuring that at a personal level, personal income tax, either the exemption levels go up or the tax rate itself comes down. You also have to make sure that the interest rates, there is so much cash in the banking system right now. That is putting a downward pressure on income rates. And if we can find a way to reduce EMIs, that will give a huge boost to the housing sector, to the auto sector. So we need to take steps to increase consumption. And this can be done by lowering tax, having more disposable income in the hands of people, increasing government spend because private spend is still some distance away, and thirdly, lowering interest rates so that EMIs go down. So we have to bring back the consumption economy, and this is something that this budget must attempt to do.
Mr. Ajay Shriram, the government would have us believe that everything's back to normal, that it's all hunky-dory in the economy, that industry is back to where it was, that consumer expenditure is back to where it was, and that the pains of demonetization are forgotten. Is that really the way it is, or do you believe the government is trying to paint a picture far rosier than reality?
No, I don't think we have fully come back to what the situation was prior to demonetization, because when you suddenly pull out 86% of the currency in float out of the system, the impact is severe. It has taken time for people to get their money back in their hands. That has also had an impact. But it's good to see that as of, let's say, we are now in the third week of January, that I would say most of the industries are between 75 to 80% back to where they were. The movement has been quite good. The demand has again picked up. The sort of economic activity level has gone up. But demonetization as an activity has definitely jerked the country. It's had a major impact. And I think this is the occasion the finance minister and the prime minister have to use the budget after the mindset of what has happened of demonetization to give a major fillip and start on a new platform virtually to show that, okay, we have been through a particular action to get more people in the net, to get more black money out, to get more taxpayers coming in, to have more accounts where ultimately as a number, today if we have 1.4% of our population paying tax, there's something wrong somewhere.
So I think this is selective. In some industries it has come back, but there are still a number of sectors, especially the consumer facing sectors, जिसमें अभी काफी स्लो है और उम्मीद यह है कि in the next 9 to 18 months all industries will not just be back to normal but will be on a higher growth track, because don't forget many of those who were earlier doing business which have now got mainstreamed will create a multiplier effect. There are of course a few things in addition to this which can be done to hasten the move forward, which I think is important. You have sectors such as housing, which has a multiplier of 154 industries connected, which needs to be encouraged. You have agriculture, which is lagging. You have millions of young Indians involved in arts, crafts and culture, which can actually create livelihoods. You can create 100 million livelihoods only based on arts, crafts and culture. And also dissuade the migration which is likely to take place from rural areas to urban areas, because the urban infrastructure is already creaking. So there are multipliers that you can get by touching different points in the system. In the budget, for example, we have outlays. If the quarterly report is made by the FM of outcomes, not only of outlays, I think the public deserves to know where the money is being spent and what we're getting out of it.
One of the things you mentioned was making the pains of demonetization worth it. What would you like to see the finance minister do to actually make the citizens, the voters of India feel that the pain that they went through was worth the effort?
If demonetization, the one great thing about demonetization is that it has increased the base of those paying taxes. And if that has indeed happened, then you can certainly try and reduce tax, put more money into the pockets of those who suffered this pain, and they will bless you for it. So that's the biggest thing I think that you need to do. You need to get back a sense of momentum in the economy. Some of that momentum has been lost over the last quarter or 2 quarters, and we must get that back really quickly by increasing public spend, by lowering interest rates, and by lowering taxes.
Here we have corporate India saying government must actually start spending more. Why don't all of you, if everything is as rara as you make it seem, why don't all of you spend more money and invest more in the economy?
I think, some industries are doing it. I think it's not that everyone is not. But if we take the last couple of years, we've had 2 bad monsoons. The world economy has also been under stress. Last year the monsoon was good, which gave a higher output, and demonetization definitely impacted in terms of farmer incomes in November and December. The planting which has happened just now in the Rabi season is fairly satisfactory. So one expects the next couple of quarters the demand again to pick up. But there is excess capacity in the country. There's no 2 ways on that. And secondly, I think the infrastructure sector part of it plays a very major role in terms of actually easing the environment for business and getting more investments coming in. I think one area where the need for investments is high, which can give a fillip to that economy, is agriculture. But one of the biggest issues is irrigation, and I think roads in rural India. I think if these 2 are taken care of, automatically the movement will happen. There will be a much faster pace of income coming into rural India, which will have a very major positive impact on the economy as a whole.
Mr. Munjal, why is the expectation so much on the government upping its expenditure as opposed to private industry believing in the India story and spending money here?
So there are 2 parts to this. It's not that you depend only on government. Private enterprise takes its own decisions. And those decisions are based on logic of where there is demand, where there is consumption, where you're meeting an unmet need. That is necessary. At this moment, the consumption being low, there's a large section of industry where capacities are underutilized. So it's unlikely that those who already have unutilized capacity are going to invest more. As Ajay just said, there are companies investing. It's not as if nobody is investing, but this is not enough. Again, when we look at our growth, I'm just going back to your earlier question. When you look at India's growth, compared to the rest of the world, it's fantastic. But for our need, it's not enough. So we have to up this. So there are two ways to up it. One is increase consumption, and if that doesn't happen, second is to increase investments. We have seen consumption is not going up, therefore investment is necessary, and there are areas which need the investment, and those areas are the ones the government can get involved, which is infrastructure, especially large infrastructure. Now, rural infrastructure that Ajay talked of is a program we launched 10 years ago. We had the world's largest rural infrastructure program we launched. We need to ensure that the pace on that does not drop, and it continues. And the multiplier, again, as I've mentioned some of the other earlier industry, the multiplier in agriculture will be the highest in this country of the benefit that we will see as both a people, a nation, and as an economy.
You know, SpiceJet and other airlines like SpiceJet in India are making the largest investments in the world at this time in buying aircraft. India is the fastest growing aviation market in the world, and it's a sector where a lot of investment is going in from the private sector as well. Not only in the airline sector, but in airports. The new airports are being built, a lot of money, private money going into these infrastructure. So, you know, whichever industries do well, clearly money will flow in, and the private sector will invest.
How does Donald Trump becoming president of the United States impact the Indian economy, impact this particular budget, given that he's putting up all manner of protectionist walls? There are literal walls which he wants to build with Mexico, and there are walls that he wants to build in keeping Indian economy, Indian companies out, other companies out. He says, be American, buy American. How does that impact all of us?
As far as Trump is concerned, you know, my belief is that we need to find opportunity in this somewhat crazy situation that exists today. And if Trump is putting up walls, you know, and if he feels that India is a good strategic partner to have, we must build on that, and we must try and get a great new trade deal with the United States. We must look at our own self-interest and make sure that we plug into the new American worldview and make the most of it.
Ajay Singh saying, forget what he might be doing with the Muslim world, keeping those immigrants out. You look at it selfishly, put your national interest first. Is that easy? Because that's not really the kind of country India has been. India has had a moral voice, and if blocking immigrants is wrong, that's the kind of voice that India has had in the past. Is that the way to approach it, or be selfish?
So both things will happen at the same time. India will continue to say what is right and what is wrong, but India is increasingly learning that in this globalized world, you have to make deals where it suits your need, which is what the US has done all along as a strategy and as a policy. And India is doing it and will do it more and more. India is now a player in geopolitics. And this is now increasingly connected to the economy of different countries. Geopolitics doesn't work in isolation. Even our soft power, I mentioned that earlier, we have an amazing heritage. But if we use our soft power better, our culture, our arts, our crafts, you can use it as a beachhead to enter different countries where you will do more trade. You will do more business. This is the way country after country has actually grown their own economy, helped their own citizens by increasing its reach across the world. And I think we need to do the same. We have begun, by the way, to be fair.
Be selfish or stand for what's morally right?
No, I think we have to be balanced. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to decide what is good for our citizens and for our country. I think one big advantage we have is India is a very large domestic market, unlike China or many other countries. We have a large demand within our country. So I think the economic activity and growth within the country can be good, even if, let's say, America was to stop a couple of economic activities which will affect us. Let's give him a little time. He's been there barely 10 days. I mean, by the time he gets his feet on the ground and gets a feel of what's happening...
There may be a nuclear war. There might be. He's already talking about the Third World War. He's talking about other senators starting the Third World War, but he's already talking about it.
But I'm not that worried. I must be honest.
Ajay, as someone who's been, you've had one foot in politics and one in government, do you believe being in government actually helps, being in politics actually helps if you're in government, if you're in business?
I think it helps because, you get both sides
That's
of
what
the view.
Donald Trump says.
But let me just say this. I think part of what he's doing is just negotiating. His style seems to be throw a firebomb, wait for that, wait for people to get scared and then go back and negotiate. This is what he's doing. Perhaps what he can do a little better is to do it one at a time. He seems to be throwing bombs in all directions and that's what's creating the chaos. He should pick one fight at a time, but to my mind, what he's doing really is negotiating. He's just trying to...
what a businessman would do.
He's just going in and saying, look, I don't want to do any deal with you. Now come back and do a better deal with me. So if what happens now is that
all businessmen on the platform really seem to like it. Everybody else sitting there may be petrified at what's happening, but all these folks seem to think, yeah, it's good for businessmen to be running the country.
No, I think there's a balance. I think it's a balance and I think for India, I'm coming back to what's good for India, because that is the key. I think our Prime Minister was the 5th person he got in touch with. There is a connect with India for the past. He has a little knowledge of India. I think the focus and attention he's giving, unfortunately, is to a particular set of people. It's not macro across the board to everyone. And he's looking at it from safety, security, etc., which is an internal US issue. From the economic point of view, I don't think he's going to look at damaging the economy in the US in a way by which it will have an impact which is negative for the people of the US. And India's got a good relationship with both the political parties in the United States over many years. So I don't see India getting into too much of a problem.
Our Prime Minister speaks a bit like that.
Correct.
Make in India,
Absolutely.
Stand up India, Start up India. Do you think this is a good opportunity, Ajay, as somebody who knows the Prime Minister personally, for Modi and Trump to get along and do business together?
I think it's a brilliant opportunity. It's a brilliant opportunity. Trump has not started a fight with China yet, but this is something that's likely to happen. That relationship is not going to be the greatest, and I think India has a great opportunity to be a fantastic strategic partner to the U.S. and benefit as a consequence of that. And we have a strong leader in India, and he, like you said, is focusing on India first as well. And there is no better way to focus on India first than by looking at the changes that are happening in the world today and using those changes to our advantage.
One of the things the Prime Minister has shown over the past few months, essentially, in the beginning his government was accused of being an incremental government, just UPA 2 plus couch, said Arun Shourie. However, now, post the surgical strikes, post the demonetization bomb, he's shown he has the wherewithal to take the big decisions which you don't really expect from a normal politician or a normal Prime Minister. What could be the next bomb? Do you think we should first let the demonetization bomb settle? Or do you believe the time has come, Mr. Munjal, for the next bomb? People are talking about, say, universal basic income, for example. Is it time to deposit a certain amount of money every month into the account of poor people? Is that possible? Is this a good time?
So one, I think this government has made up its mind. It's going to do a certain amount of things. And it doesn't want to wait for doing one, waiting for the impact and then go on. And also from what one hears from both the finance minister and the prime minister, their belief is things are back to normal. Because the revenue was up in November,
You don't
December.
agree with?
I don't agree with that, no. But I think that revenue went up in November, December because a lot of the revenue which was not really being reported came into the system. But the actual industry at that time, the consumption was down. Every industry after industry, you could see that. While you give my designation wrong, it's no longer Hero MotoCorp, it's Hero Corporate. But in the automotive industry, the numbers were down very significantly. Siam put out numbers, 22% down, both in the four-wheelers and in two-wheelers. And some companies went down as much as 40%. So that takes a while to come back.
As long as those bombs are planned in advance, I don't see any problem why we shouldn't shake up the system. And I think this Prime Minister and this Finance Minister have shown that, they are not going to be led by pure politics. They will do what they think is in the interest of the country, and they will not hesitate to take big, bold decisions.
I think we should wait for a while. I think there's a lot of homework that needs to be done to put this sort of a scheme in place. Because we already have subsidy going for LPG, we are looking at having some sort of a direct benefit transfer in fertilizers, though it's not going to the farmer, it's going to the dealers. but there is a scheme which is under discussion there. On the education front, government already has some schemes in place. I think the data bank with the government needs to be updated more to target it correctly and then give it to a set of people who deserve it.
Three
And
shades of
not yet.
opinion. We've got the most
Not
adventurous shade of opinion here, saying this is the moment, seize it, go for the kill. We've got Sunil Munjal in the middle saying, okay, it's a great idea, try it in limited pockets, try it as try it in an initial phase, but try it in limited districts. And you got Mr. Sriram saying that no, give it more time. So you've got three completely different sets of opinion. We've had a very interesting conversation. Thank you very much for joining us at the CII Free Budget Roundtable. Thank you.